Good evening, Muttonistas. You probably worked out by now that I am a frequent visitor to China. I've come here so many times, been to so many places, but today I'm in a part of China I've never visited before. Tucked right in the southeast of the country, in Fujian province, the city of Xiamen. Not quite sure what the food's going to be like. Will it be more like Shanghai-style food? Will it be like Cantonese-style food? Or will it have its own unique cuisine of its own? Only one way to find out, Muttonistas, so join me for today's vlog on the cuisine of Fujian province. In case you're interested where I am at the Wyndham Hotel in the middle of Xiamen. Lots of grasshoppers chirping away, or whatever you call it, in the background. And I am going to start this vlog off with something quite unusual, which is a banquet-style meal, something that a lot of Chinese people have at conferences and meetings, and I am indeed at a conference here. We're going to finish it off on another day with a more traditional Fujian-style meal, but I'm looking forward to this because while I've had Chinese banquets before, not had one like this. I've seen the menu and there's plenty of weird stuff to keep you going. And of course, with me to guide me, the evergreen Mr Fu, who could just hopefully describe in a few words what the cuisine's like, because I don't know what it's going to be like. I think we're close to the Guangdong or the Cantonese province, and we're a little bit south of where we were before in Ningbo in Zhejiang. Mr Fu, what type of cuisine am I going to expect tonight? Anything like Cantonese food?
Not even close, Uncle Jason. This is one of the top 8 cuisines in China, very famous. Fujian province, they have their own way of cooking. I hope the private kitchen tonight will give you an English menu, and then you can have more idea than what I explained, because I had quite a lot before, but lots of ingredients I can't explain in English. Let's hope you will see.
Well, Muttonistas, I think that means a few weird ingredients, but you know I'm always game to try these things, and I don't know how formal this is going to be. It might have to be that I do voiceovers quite a lot and describe what happens afterwards, but let's wait and see how formal this turns out to be. So we have arrived about half an hour, and I geographically misled you a bit because we were somewhere near the coastline, and we're in the business district of the city now, which, although it's a coastal city, is a little bit inland. Anyway, looking forward to this. Restaurant looks beautifully appointed, and as always, 2 large bottles of white liquor were transported with us. I'm not sure I'm going to get any red wine here. And Mr Fu told me that the concept of this restaurant, similar to the one in Sichuan in Jiangsu, where they tell you what they can make, and the guy who's hosting the meal, yes, again, one person tends to host the whole thing in these parts, he's going to choose which dishes we're going to have. So, Muttonistas, that's a tea table. What is the concept of a tea table?
This part of China is like same with the Zhejiang province. Before you have dinner together, they have a table just in case you're waiting for a friend and they are late. So everybody can have a tea here and talk and chat. Even someone can play some card games during the tea place. So this is very traditional. Every restaurant got a tea table.
And hopefully I'm going to get a bit of that rather than that rather strong white stuff.
They play card games.
Wow, what a large table. Good. And somebody's making tea over there.
Yes, if you want. Getting ready.
Okay. And this Muttonistas must be the biggest dining table I have ever sat at. I reckon you could get 20 around here, and I'm sure this is just some massive lazy Susan where all the dishes spin round and you just grab stuff as it goes round. Now some cartons of what looked like milk or a yogurt drink came, unfortunately a bit sweet, like apricot flavoured I think, but thankfully I have seen a decanter full of wine over there, because I know most of the table would normally drink that white stuff that's like petrol. I believe it's called Baijiu. Hey Muttonistas, this is called rock tea. It's a variant of oolong, and I like oolong a lot, so I should like this. Very nice, light and mellow flavour, and I have to say I don't understand why they just give you this tiny thimble of a cup. Although I have to say some of the boys on the other side of the table will be interested in a very different type of tea. So good news, Muttonistas, they're going to give us a translated menu, and boy, they're not messing about here. One of the amuse-bouche items are caviar parcels. Wow, this is going to be a great meal if that's the standard of ingredient they're using. And as predicted, they're mixing up the medicine over there.
就像那鱼子酱后边是什么？鱼子酱石榴包里面包的是紫菜。再加上是吗？对，使劲倒，使劲倒。你给它倒一壶换的了。放一壶再。好，谢谢东道主。啊，对，我们以东道主是。对，我们对。那一个是捕鱼的。
Right, Muttonistas, Montes Cabernet Sauvignon from Chile, a solid performer, though nothing special. And a little bit too warm, but the room is cool, so let's hope that improves. Yes, why not? So let's give the caviar a go. Even I can't stain my t-shirt eating this. And I haven't messed about with it too much, very clear and plain taste. So for those of you who haven't had caviar before, it is quite salty and it tastes very, very fishy. It comes from the sturgeon, it's the eggs from the sturgeon, and you can get it from salmon as well, red caviar, but the black stuff is much tastier. Having said that, I don't go wild over it like some do. Now for a spicy razor clam. Another cold dish, absolutely one of my favourites. So glad they spiced it up as well. So I'd better have a quick slurp. The sweet potato chips, beautifully done. Is a little hint of sweetness and a very, very slight hint of spice. Sesame as well.
Don't try it.
Okay. Now then, I don't know what I'm eating here, but I'm going to eat first and ask questions later. It's obviously something that's coated in jelly. Reasonably pleasant, nice dip, still no idea what it is, so I'm going to have to ask Mr Fu to enlighten me. So what have I just eaten there?
That's only from this area. I know it's made in the countryside. Called, according to my dictionary, says warm jelly. They made, that's my favorite thing, but I really only have this here.
And is it like a snail or something inside? No?
No, it's more like a, what do you call that?
Insect?
Yes.
Okay.
Very tasty. That's jellyfish.
Okay, Muttonistas, jellyfish now. Not sure how it's prepared and Mr Fu wasn't able to translate. Looks like some sort of soy preparation with some sort of fish eggs on top or fish roe on top, I think. Anyway, in for a penny, in for a pound. I did tell you, Muttonistas, there would be a lot of stuff on this menu that you and I would not be used to eating. Well, I have actually had jellyfish in the past. It was quite crunchy, but very gelatinous and delicious. A bit of vinegar, a bit of soy, and a bit of heat. Totally inappropriate for red wine, but I'm going to have a quick slurp anyway. Looks like it's soup time now, Muttonistas. I really don't know what we're getting, but actually on this trip, it's the first time I've had a bowl of soup.
From Yunnan, that's the mushroom.
Yunnan style mushrooms, one of my favourites, and Yunnan province in the southwest of China is the best place for mushrooms. If you ever go there, you'll see why when you encounter the climate. It's not as hot as other parts of southern China. Yep, beautifully cooked, very fresh and crisp, and not too many spices or flavouring, so you taste the base ingredient. Worthy of a slurp. And I am really having to eat fast with my camera work and photography and my commentary because the dishes are flying out thick and fast. Grab some of that fish before it all goes. Right, had to grab some of the fish before it all disappeared. Yellow croaker in pickled chili. Okay, time for the abalone and pig stomach soup. Fu's been raving about it, so I hope it's on the money. And of course, abalone is an expensive ingredient that people like to flamboyantly include in Chinese banquets, particularly in southern China. It's served in a clear broth with some sort of stock. It's pleasant, but I wouldn't actually rave about it. But then again, I'm not Chinese, and it's probably very much to their taste. Now for the crab, beautifully prepared, so it's so easy to eat. And it's a snow crab, which I think is some variant on a king crab. Anyway, it's been prepared thermidor style, which I wasn't expecting here. Oh yes, I'll have some of that. I do love that. That's very much a fusion dish, not a local dish, but it is so good. Okay, so we've got conches or massive sea snails. I'm going to have to reach over and grab one because my chopstick skills are not good enough to grab one of those. Okay, on to the conch. I'm dipping it in that vinegar and soy dressing. Now those conches, you can get them all over the world, and the way they prepare them, not too dissimilar. Boiled, the dressing is really the only difference. They might taste slightly rubbery to some people, but they are quite flavoursome. Very, very, very seafoody or fishy. Some of you will like that, some of you won't. Not sure I can work out which part of the cow that is. Time now for a bit of that mixed beef casserole. When I say mixed beef, all parts of the cow. A tendon here, a bit of shin. And as a frequent visitor to Spain, I detected some cheeks in there as well. Quite a rich sauce, no spice at all. The chef won't disclose his recipe, but I can tell you, Muttonistas, it's the most slurp-worthy dish I've had so far. Time for some locally braised duck. I can't see it comparing to that beef, which was so tender. Skin on, very important, just like the fish was skin on. Yes, bone in and in a super meaty, rich dressing and sauce again. Wow, I can't stop slurping. This is so good. Veg time now. These look like chives, but they're not, and we can't find a translation. But I know it's prepared with smoked meat that I've been raving about all trip. And no Chinese meal would be complete without a bit of tofu prepared with shrimps here. I'm not sure what the yellow stock-based broth is all about, but we'll give it a try. It should soak up any flavours that were in there. And to be fair, I can taste a bit of egg there, but otherwise a little bit bland. Back to the beef, we think we found a cheek. Very similar to the Spanish preparation, except Chinese cooking sherry instead of Spanish sherry or wine. A new vegetable dish has come out. These are smoked bamboo shoots. There are bits of meat within. Now, Muttonistas, I thought we were coming to the end of the road, but maybe not. Another dish has come out. Mr Fu thinks more is coming. A Maintenant, Muttonistas, I bring you a Fujian classic, pork ribs marinated in vinegar. Wow, now then, sweet and sour merchants. This is the closest thing you'll get here in Fujian province to that. The way the pork's been slightly battered, same as what you'd get in a sweet and sour dish at a Western restaurant, but you're getting a lot of the sour and not too much sweet. Sorry if that disappoints you, but I love this and it's the way they do it here. So we're nearly done here. A bit of green veg and noodles to finish, as always, carbs at the end. And this is a vegetable whose name I can't remember, so I'll ask Mr Fu. But yet another Chinese green, beautifully prepared, crispy, very lightly cooked. Okay, Muttonistas, as always, carbs at the end, noodles, and it's because the host of the meal doesn't want to look cheap by filling the table with cheap carbs early doors, which is why I was a bit surprised about the crab sticky rice, although it went down like a house on fire. Anyway, these noodles look a little bit unusual. I didn't fully understand how the sauce ended up brown, but the seafood, green beans and that, but for a better description, over to Mr. Fu.
Right, Muttonistas. Most of the time is rice noodle, but this is bean flour made, but together with some seafood. But I know that because they told me this is green beans flour. I know what it is. I don't know exactly how to explain, but the taste is exactly like a rice noodle. But mainly the soup is only made from it's only made. They put some only salt in it. Also, my first time to have it, quite tasty. Primemutton will tell you later about the taste.
Okay, time to give it a whirl, and I'm going to be ultra cautious here because for once at one of these meals I've kept a clean sheet. There is absolutely nothing on my shirt at all, and I want to keep it that way this time. And of course, noodles and sauce are one of the best dangerous foodstuffs for staining shirts, so I'm going to lean right over. Gosh, not what I was expecting at all. Very fishy, very seafoody, good texture, but the sauce, which I thought would be full of sesame, doesn't actually taste of that much, but the fishy flavours are good enough in themselves to flavour the noodles. Okay, Muttonistas, that was the last dish, and I have to say I really enjoyed it. What a feast we had today. Some dishes I've never ever had before, some ingredients I'm familiar with, prepared in different ways. But Mr. Fu knows a bit more about this stuff than I do. He's had quite a few Fujian meals, so I'm going to ask him how he can compare this to other Fujian meals he's had before we move on to the traditional Fujian cuisine that we're going to go through tomorrow or the day after.
Before I came here like 3-4 times, our guy always took me to some small restaurant. Even once in peasant area, this is the building, and I just wondering what it is, but it's a restaurant held by a family. It was very, very good, very nice. Most of the time when we play these tournaments, we have very limited time. So we go there, have the food, then goes back. There's 2 restaurants I'm so keen on to go with him. But I hope tomorrow's dinner is going to be like the one I've been before. This one is a bit formal, private kitchen. Menus pre-arranged. Mutton, first time here that our guy knows, so he's trying to make you a good impression about the Fujian food. So this is more like a proper Min style food. But tomorrow you are going to have some different experience to compare with. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's dinner.
And I'll be back in a few ticks for you and a day for me with a traditional lunch. Greetings, Muttonistas, back again, and it's a lovely day here in Xiamen, albeit a bit too hot for the prime mutton. And behind me, 2 islands. On that side, Little Jinmen, on the other side, Big Jinmen, and they actually belong to Taiwan, so close to the coast here. Not sure how they've managed to hang on to these, I guess, since all the wars and struggles they had in the 40s and 50s, China keeps to its international agreements and obligations. And the main island of Taiwan isn't that far away, I think it's 300 kilometres away. Anyway, we're not going to see this, but further down the coast they have broadcasts propaganda through speakers aimed at each other, and they have got all sorts of political slogans on both sides. And thankfully Mr Fu's translated this propaganda slogan: "We are one China, one country, two systems, we will unite China," something like that. Right, Muttonistas, I wasn't told what we're having or where we're going. It looks very old school and traditional, so I'm going to have to leave it to Mr Fu to tell us what we're having and what this shop serves. I understand it is actually quite locally famous. What are we having here, Mr Fu?
This is a very famous noodle place. This is also my first time here. They cook the noodle, but before they do this, you can choose all your ingredients. Yours already sorted by our guy, like seafood, the funny part of beef.
Offal, yep.
Yeah, those sort of things. And this is a very, very historical cuisine, the noodle. You see this street, there are so many same restaurants, but they don't use the same exactly Chinese character. They are very close. And here the price is 3 times expensive than the others.
And this is the original, the others are copies, are
Yes,
they?
yes,
Okay.
that is.
And what's the name of this restaurant?
Wutang. Sha Cha is their noodle.
Okay.
Wutang Sha Cha.
Wutang Sha Cha.
Noodle. Yeah.
Okay, let's go in.
This is the end of their business hours.
Okay.
2:30. So, but already that's what we had last night.
Okay.
Abalone.
Abalone.
Abalone. Yes. See, they just put it together and just cook.
Okay.
Okay.
你告诉他下午马上要关店了，不然有很多的料。来，
Otherwise, we'll be queue for a long time.
他们
So I have to say, Muttonistas, this reminds me a little bit of laksa. Obviously, it's not going to be the same. It looks like a spicy, fishy broth and a hell of a lot of seafood in here. And obviously, you saw a ton of prawns in here. I'm not going to take those on first because they're going to be messy. Can't do it one-handed. But time for some abalone. Bit of offal, of course. You know I like offal, Muttonistas. And so far it's tasting a bit like a slightly spiced local fish soup noodles. Actually not wildly dissimilar from some of the European style fish soups until you get the kick of spice. Anyway, we have a fish ball here, which is going to be tricky to eat. The noodles themselves are wheat noodles. I always get a bit confused between rice noodles and wheat noodles, mainly because I don't often have noodles. And apparently, Muttonistas, we've timed this quite well. It is 2:15. They open every day from 6 a.m. till about 2:30, and people queue up at 11 or 12 for their lunch, so I'm glad we left it a bit late. Still very tasty, and it's another place where they buy in their seafood, and if they don't use it, they throw it away, and if they run out of something, tough, they run out. Anyway, I'm going to get on with this because I'm enjoying it. It's really, really possibly the best noodle dish I can remember having in China. Right, Muttonistas, that was 15 minutes of exquisite, world-beating noodleness. Get yourself to Wu-Tang's Noodle House in Xiamen if you find yourself here. You might have difficulty translating. Now, I usually, when it comes to soup noodles, just eat the noodles and leave the soup. Now, I prefer dry noodles myself normally, and Chinese people tend to prefer soup noodles, but boy, this was so good, this is one soup that I am going to drink. Oh, and in case you're wondering, we're not spending one day just having one dish. We're on for more Muttonistas. Would I be so mean as to just give you a bowl of noodles? No, obviously not. So let's go on to the next place. And of course, as usual, I've got no idea what I'm going to eat or where. Okay, Muttonistas, into the central district. And there's quite a famous food street we're going to. But first of all, we had to stop somewhere where Hainan, the local guy who's fixed everything for us, tells me there are some fantastic wontons, and he used to be involved with collecting tax in this establishment, so he knows it well. Not quite sure where we are, so over to Mr Fu to explain exactly where we are and what we're having. Mr Fu, I believe we're going to get wontons here. Is this the only thing the establishment does? And does it do them any differently to the way we're used to having them in Chinese restaurants around the world?
I can't really explain the difference before we really have it. But I do know is here is like 30 years history of this restaurant, and they serve not only wonton. Wonton is very famous local style of food, but they also do noodles. But my guess is the noodle is another sort of noodle I didn't have before. So we'll find out what it's really like. Pork near the big bones.
Aha. Seems that with this preparation we do add vinegar. Not sure how much, so I'm going to let Mr Fu add the correct amount for me. Oh yes, a bit of white pepper as well. And yes, before any of you ask, this is not the same vinegar we put on fish and chips. Okay, Muttonistas, we have obviously the wontons, but we also have some pork that comes from a part of the pig very close to the knuckle. Unless it's just that piece, they've actually deboned it as well, which is nice. Okay, the soup isn't as spicy as the previous one, but it's still pretty flavoursome. A fairly clear broth, this one, but it's got a lot of meaty flavour. And now, folks, time for the main event, the wonton, the dumpling itself. Okay, not the biggest mystery to man, dumplings filled with pork, but they are lovely when they're prepared this way. In fact, wontons are very, very versatile. You can soup them, steam them, deep fry them, and they're always delicious. Even better if they have a bit of hot sauce with them. Anyway, Muttonistas, I'm going to finish this quick snack and move on to the most famous food street in Xiamen. And before we go, actually, Muttonistas, not only was that clear and refreshing on a hot day, but wontons are something that are made all over China. I think they were originally something that came from this part of China and Canton, but they all have their different varieties and recipes. What I'd say is that this was pretty good, and the pork knuckle as well was a fantastic addition. Anyway, enough waffle from me, onto the food street.
先做成一碗，给我们分成3碗，或者给我们打包也行。
对，打包吧，
打包带回去给我老婆吃。打包。
对，打包。
整碗面出来的时候拍啊，你就在一碗放在一起。
Okay, Muttonistas, a little bonus stop. I promise you we will get to that food street eventually. And now our man, our host, knows a place that does very good prawn noodles. Now, I'm going to go a bit easy on the carbs because I'm going to get full too quickly otherwise. But they seem to have a beautiful looking plate of fried rice, which I believe is one of the specialities of the region. In fact, one of the most famous in the whole of China. However, I've asked them to leave that till the end simply because if we have that now, I'm not going to be able to eat anymore. Anyway, I'm going to have a little pick and a little graze at this. Let's give it a whirl. I don't know what we're having, but I'm sure it'll be good. What's he just put on top of that? And the powder?
Powder is garlic.
Garlic.
And coriander and your favorite.
Okay. Slight change of plan. Having heard my protestations about too many carbs, we are going to the food street. He's going to take one of those away, actually with fish balls and pork, rather than with the prawns for his wife. Did it look good, I have to say, but given it had celery on top, maybe a lucky escape for the prime mutton there. Anyway, as we walk along the street, so many interesting little hole-in-the-wall places that we're passing by, like the place to my left here, and everything's written in Chinese. Absolutely impossible, I think, to decide where you want to go if you're not with a friend or a guide. If you don't have any Chinese friends, I'd recommend hiring a guide if you come out here because it's just too difficult. And of course, as I keep saying in my videos, get Alipay or WeChat Pay set up and a WeChat account so you can communicate with people, because over here your favourite messenger and social media platforms are all banned. Some interesting bread and bakery products there, but I have to say Chinese bread is so glycemic. The flour is so white and but actually looks a bit artificial to me. I couldn't eat it. Why? Well, I don't know. It's probably what's cheapest, but I wish it were possible to get wholemeal products here more easily. And Muttonistas, those were the other items we could have had in our spicy fishy noodle soup had we been there earlier, but I'd rather not have been queuing for an hour, to be honest, so I'm happy with what I got. Now, we have arrived at the food street and it looks very exciting.
他要有个开门语，还得录个开门语。
这是英国的网红。
中山路豪香米鸡肉串，20年老店，欢迎品尝。
不然你不然一碗先吃看看，吃看看。
不是，我要打包走了。你先煎一个吧。啊，先煎。煎一个，如果要两个太慢，我说。
中山路豪香米鸡肉串，20年老店，欢迎品尝。岭南特色小吃海蛎煎，好吃的花煎。
So what's he making here, Mr. Fu?
It's like a seafood omelette, but for my knowledge, it's very famous in Taiwan.
I've heard of Taiwan oyster omelette, but is this just oysters or mixed seafood?
I think it's just the
oyster.
中山路豪香米鸡肉串，20年岭南特色小吃海蛎煎，好吃的花煎。
So it looks to me as if he's just used eggs, spring onions, oysters and a bit of flour, is
yes,
it?
Yes, correct.
What just went on there? Salt.
cut a small piece for you to taste. 哎，对，给他一小块。
中山路豪香里脊肉串，20年老店，欢迎品尝。
I must admit, Muttonistas, if I were cooking eggs myself, I would never cook them for this long, but I'm sure he knows what he's doing and it's going to taste good. I mean, let's face it, when I eat a piece of meat, I hardly cook it either. In fact, I have it raw a lot of the time.
他说他从来没见过，其实看起来就像是弄鸡蛋，煎个鸡蛋要那么久吗？但是一定挺好吃的。
我直接中间吧哈。
而且不是它太多了，
太多了，就给他一小块，一小块就够。
这个酱
啊，对对对，就让他吃一下，然后他就给他一个，我就让他给他。
And what's gone on at the end there?
Yeah, that's
Hot sauce?
那个酱什么酱
厦门辣酱。
？Yes, hot sauce， 厦门的。That's for you to taste.
Okay, thankfully Mr Fu has taken over the camera because this is awkward to eat on its own. And unlike my previous Taiwanese oyster omelette in Singapore, it was fairly plain. They've added chili here. That is really good. And as always, Muttonistas, I love the addition of spice. The oysters taste fresh. I usually have those raw. They're pretty good. I don't have eggs cooked as well as this normally, but this is actually very nicely done and it tastes great and complements the oysters. So there you are, folks. I was wrong about overcooking the eggs there. Well, 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 what a great start to the food street that was. At this rate, I'm not going to need the airline food.
我就来一杯就好。
巴氏土笋肉、土笋汤。
不用不用，谢谢谢谢。
And a reminder that that was the Xiamen sandworm. If you haven't seen me have one of those, you've not been watching all of the video, because I had one at the big formal meal at the round table. And it neither tasted good or bad. As a fan of pork pies, obviously gelatinous stuff, I'm quite happy with. And Mr Fu picked up a cold beverage. It looks like guava juice, is it, or plum juice?
Is that you when you have the duck? They gave you.
Plum juice. Plum
Yeah,
juice. Okay.
Yeah, they just do it when you order. They do it. See.
正宗台湾特色小吃毛蛋烧非常好吃。
What's that? Is it like a spring onion with intestines wrapped around it?
Yes. 也是有点点，在那儿做好了，端着就去吃。
And is there a connection with fishing here? Because I can see live seafood all over the place.
I told you this is the number 8 market. Seafood from the port, from the boat, just delivered directly here for people to get. This is a tradition.
But would you take this home, or can you take it into a nearby restaurant?
Yes, both you can do it.
Okay. And what do we have here?
That's the Shanghai style. It's not local.
Okay. Here we have somewhere where you can order the fresh seafood and have it in the restaurant.
There's a totally different way.
你看这个 CCTV，
CCTV did a program.
And what was the program about? This style of duck cooking?
Yeah. 姜母鸭 means they use a lot of Chinese ginger thing.
Ginger, yeah.
Yeah, everything that they mix for the soup and they grill. I don't think it's grilled. It's like, and then it's supposed to be very good to your health.
Okay. Well, you've heard it here first from Mr Fu. Eat more duck for a long life.
英国的网红，他拍的都是往英国走啊。
Take a look at those muttonistas. Absolutely enormous. Although, in terms of oysters, size definitely doesn't matter. You need fresh, cold water oysters. I would not touch those from warm water, and they've been out in the heat a lot. And to be honest, even though you get a bigger variety of seafood in these warm places, cold water shellfish and fish always tastier.
就是最后你烤完了之后，往里加什么东西？Garlic.
So they just add garlic, oil,
Yeah.
salt.
放盐吗？They have a mixture of with salt in it.
When you see all this Muttonistas, it makes you realise why at Chinese restaurants around the world the Chinese customers like to see tanks of live seafood. Because here, I mean, I love, for example, sea urchins and oysters, but having had plenty in, shall we say, countries with better hygienic repute that have made me a little bit unwell, I want to see them in ice, or I want to see them live. Those sea urchins sitting around in weather like this, no way. I really love them. I've had them in Japanese places, I've had them in cider in Asturias, and they're beautiful. But it's a recipe for making oneself sick out here. Okay, fascinating street food there, and now if I come back there again, I will have something, but only, as I said, those live things from the tank. Anyway, we've left the food street. We're going to have one last restaurant stop, hopefully to try the famous fried rice and maybe a bit more seafood before we wrap the vlog up.
空调有没有热死了？热死了！
你帮我点一碗鸭肉多的多，专门拍美食的，然后已经吃太多了，就一碗。
鸭肉粥。
鸭肉。很有名的这个，因为它然后正宗。
一开连锁店就。然后还有那个鸭肉是吗？那个。
Ah, some rather soupy rice going in there.
Yeah, that's
famous.
那个鸭肉已经剪在里边了啊 ，and with duck in there.
Okay.
But I didn't see this is cut too quick. It's this.
So he's supposed to put duck in. I didn't see any duck going, but I was a bit slow to.
Yeah, he
saw
was
plenty
quick.
of intestines and other things going.
Yeah, that's the. 这是什么玩意儿啊？这是鱼吗？
这是鱿鱼。
Yes. And what's
鲨鱼鲨。
that's duck? Shark. And what's that there? Is that
That's the
oysters again?
oysters.
Okay.
Yeah. Intestines,
Pork.
liver.
Liver.
And he did cut. This is famous for the duck.
Okay.
We'll have a small portion.
Right. Well, Mr. Fu seems to be enjoying this.
Yeah. The I don't know how to say it. It's a congee, no, but it's like
The consistency.
yes, the same thing. But it's very tasty, very tasty. My teeth can't bite the duck, but
Okay.
still.
Okay. I'll look after the duck for you then. Here comes the duck. And thankfully a spoon came rather than chopsticks, because for me eating soupy rice with chopsticks would be as silly as eating steak with a toothpick.
没有，北京晚不了点，
不是啊，这边回北京晚点。
也不能晚3个小时。
啊？
一个航空。
That is full of flavour. Possibly I even did it with the pepper a bit. I've never had rice like this before. I've had the breakfast congee, which I find plain, but this is actually pretty tasty. Okay, Muttonistas, that was completely new on me. I wasn't expecting that at all, but it really was an interesting and tasty dish. I've had soupy rice in other countries like Spain, for example, sure, but never had it here in China. Anyway, a big thanks to Mr. Zhang, who's been showing us around today. And I was going to end the vlog off here, but I'm going to see if I can get that plate of local fried rice at the airport to wrap the video up. I'll see you in a few ticks, Muttonistas. We might get it, or we might not. Okay, Muttonistas, we're actually at the airport now. That soupy rice was so filling, I couldn't actually manage any more. when I finally finish up the video, I'll see what I can get after security, but myself and Mr Fu are going different ways now. But I, especially new Muttonistas, owe Mr Fu a huge debt of thanks. He's really gone out of the way for me and you here to show us all these wonderful places. It's been a great series, starting in Changsha, some stuff in Beijing, some stuff in Ningbo, which I posted up on my Instagram, and finally Fujian province and the city of Xiamen. Never been there before. I think Mr Fu's had a few things he's never had before as well. So it's goodbye from Mr Fu.
Hi there, bye there, Muttonistas. Hope to see you next time.
And maybe you'll see him in Europe or on my next trip to China. I'm going to go through security actually and have a few final thoughts and words about my trip to China. So I'll be back with you in a few ticks. Right, Muttonistas, said bye to Mr Fu. What a star he is. And I know some of you like to look and document or watch my travels, so I'm going to give you a little insight to how I travel. Not very long, not very much. And if you fly on business, you usually get a few perks like a fast-track check-in and security line, and then a lounge, and then goodies on the plane. Now, for this domestic leg, you don't get that much in the lounge. It's sort of okay espresso. Haven't seen any alcoholic beverages, but sometimes domestically with Air China and China 7 I've seen those available. One bad thing about Hainan though, transiting through Beijing both ways, I'm going to have to pick up my bag as I did on my way in, go upstairs to departures, check in and go through security again. I can understand that on the way in, but on the way out, nah, it should be seamless from domestic to international. And it is quite a spacious lounge. There could be more PowerPoints though. I've had to look hard and long to find one. And I've no idea what's going on here. Some fancy tea preparation probably. The area's famous for tea. And as I arrived, there were some hot dishes here, but come 7:45 they're being cleared away. And there is a noodle stand, but I'm going to get so much free food that I'm not that bothered. But bizarrely, if I wanted a bowl of cereal, I could get one at 7:45 in the evening. So not a lot going on here. Pleasant lounge, the airport's too hot. They really don't air condition places properly in China, with a few exceptions. And any outlet that wanted to here, well, there's a Starbucks over there, but again, that's kind of using the same air as the airport. So I think I'll reserve my eating and drinking for the plane and supposedly the flagship lounge in Beijing, where Muttonistas, we can have a proper slurp. Okay, safely on board Muttonistas, and the plane is boiling hot. They really don't know what air conditioning is here. The meal service is going to be pretty limited, even though I'm in business class for a 2.5-hour flight. A beef sandwich, no wine, just a Heineken. I've been led to believe at least that's cold, though. That's one good thing. And there will be better stuff to have on the international legs. So Muttonistas, don't worry, that quick slurp and final word will be coming a bit later. Well, I suppose it's not a bad looking cold snack platter. Beef sandwich, sadly on white bread again, fruit, some cake. I don't know if that's drinking yogurt, usually sweet, and not sure why I need chopsticks to eat a sandwich. Anyway, at least I've managed to get a drink, a beer. But I'm hoping for better things when I get to Beijing. See you there, Muttonistas. Okay, Muttonistas, here I am at the domestic baggage claim, having to pick up my bag and then recheck in and go through security. The seat was nice, the meal was a bit disappointing, the drink selection a bit poor, the lounge wasn't great. I suppose the check-in was nice enough, but a bit underwhelming so far, and I hope it gets better. Mr Fu, meanwhile, has been having noodles and white wine on a different airline, Xiamen Air. Okay, Muttonistas, I thought I could do the wrap from the lounge, but unfortunately it's disappointed again. No champagne in the lounge, business class lounge in an intercontinental flight area. Just a couple of very, very average bottles of wine, and the food selection looks a bit tired to me. Has all the marks of accountants slashing and burning their way through this airline. Anyone for a little Campari? It really is a little. Well, the chicken kebabs look the best so far, not many of them left. Chicken mini burger. Well, two pretty cheap and bad wines there. I've got a glass of the white in front of me. I'm not sure I'm going to drink it all. I'm hoping for better on the plane. The chicken kebab was alright, I just tried that. Chicken burger, well, it's okay, it's not hot enough. And the pasta has some flavour, but it's actually cold. This is not good at all. Please, please, please give me something decent on the plane. I'll have the kebabs and the chicken, and then I'll wait for whatever I get. I'm not going to eat that pasta. Now, onto my thoughts about China as I'm leaving. A lot of you post a lot of comments, mostly negative actually, about the society in which they live. Well, that's not my business really. What my concern is about how well tourists are treated and what's good to see and do here. It's not an evil empire like people think. It's not like North Korea. People have considerable economic freedom here and can move about freely as they want. Yes, there is quite a lot of surveillance, and the people in charge of the country, if you try and step on their toes, they will meet state-sponsored violence at you. But to be honest, it's the same everywhere. It's just the degree to which people have the power to do that. In terms of the food, fantastic. What you can see, the history, the architecture, the nature, again, fantastic. But of course, the big problems, getting that payment method sorted out. It was actually quite simple once I'd loaded my ID. So you can use Weixin or Alipay. Those are the two things that you need. Alipay is a bit easier because for the Weixin Pay you need an active WeChat account, which you kind of need somebody who already has one to sign you in, as it were, and add you to WeChat or scan a QR code. But it is a good idea to get such an account if you can. And would I advise you Muttonistas to come to China? Absolutely yes. The best holiday or travel destinations are places which are culturally different, where the language is different, the lifestyle is different, where the food is different, where the architecture is different. It's much more interesting than, say, going to Florida, the Caribbean. I know a lot of people just like to lay on the beach because they're knackered after months and months of hard work, and I understand that. But if you want to see something interesting, these are the places to come to. And of course, Muttonistas, I would heartily encourage you, wherever you live, to seek out the restaurants where the Chinese students in your locality live. Now, luckily in Manchester, there are loads of them. I mean, when I went to the check-in, I think I was only one of two non-Chinese people checking in, so that is always a good sign. And a bit of mitigation for the airline. They are in the terminal they are in. If they can't handle domestic to international transfer through this terminal, fair enough. Also, they do aim mainly at Chinese customers, so some of the stuff that I'd expect from a business class trip, maybe they won't always have. The service of the staff has been pretty good. It is supposed to be a 5-star airline though, and it clearly isn't. Okay, a lot of people who come into these lounges have frequent flyer status as well, but it should be a bit better than this. Okay, Muttonistas, I will join you again when I've boarded the aircraft, and I do promise you that that will be the final hurrah from this video. Oh, and before I do actually head to the plane, one of the reasons I'm doing this is because there is a dearth of reviews about this particular airline, and all Chinese airlines, to be honest. If you look back on YouTube at some of the stuff that's gone before, it was before COVID, and before I believe this airline made a terrible investment in another airline, which nearly bankrupted it. You've got all sorts of goodies in here, a really nice champagne, a really nice red wine, stuff that they had on board the plane. And I might try some shortly. If you like Chinese noodles, they have a fresh noodle bar as everywhere. And again, they do mainly cater to Chinese customers. But anyway, let's hope the journey's a good one. I had to take this flight because of the time pressure. It's not 5-star, but it's okay. Okay, Muttonistas, I am on board and I finally found something quaffable, a glass of champagne. It's cold, not quite as fizzy as I'd hoped, so it was something left over from the last flight. This isn't going well at all, this flight, and okay, I accept some of the service issues are to do with all the service being aimed at Chinese customers. Now, they've been mean with the food as well. There's a breakfast service, but there's only a little snack service beforehand, and this is all I've got. I asked for the beef skewers, there was a choice of a few things, and this is what I get as my first meal. So I suppose at least they've got me from A to B to C on the dates I needed. I had one day to play with, brought you that Beamish in Dublin vlog, and I've had to come straight back at the end of my conferences in China. Anyway, I'm not going to let this detract from a fantastic month I've had in China. Some great food, some great events, some great sightseeing. And I'm going to have to love you and leave you again, Muttonistas. Hope you enjoyed this vlog and the whole series. Again, I had to cover this because it's a criminally undercovered airline, and I did actually fly them once in 2018 and they were really good. Okay folks, I'm back at Manchester Airport, very grateful for a nice blast of cold air. Now, I did get a reasonable sleep, about 4.5 hours, although I don't like the tight footwells. I much prefer the old-fashioned seats actually, which just stretch out and leave a wide, I think it's called an ottoman, where you put your feet. Anyway, for the price I paid, it was actually okay. It was the lounges and the domestic flight from Xiamen which wasn't so good. The domestic flight on the way in was actually quite good. End of the series from China, more content from Britain and Ireland to come, so I'm going to love you and leave you, Muttonistas. Please remember, keep liking, keep sharing, keep subscribing, but most of all, don't forget, you can't beat a bit of mutton.